Hi, my name is Karen, and I'm an American lay student of Ajahn Suchart, or Phra Ajahn Suchart Abhijato, who's given me his permission to read his books to you for free. Ajahn Suchart's books and talks are always free. Any ads that you may see or hear in this recording are put there by Google for its own revenue, in exchange for letting us use their platform for free. Please forgive me for any mispronunciations of names or words, and for any background noises, as I'm just making these recordings in my apartment with an unruly dog, and sometimes street noise and neighbor noise and that kind of thing. But we'll do our best. I am reading Against the Defilements by Phra Ajahn Suchart Abhijato. This is recording number 11 of 12 in the reading of the entire text of the book. And today we are on number 11, and we are beginning on page 220. It is considered fortunate to have found respectable teachers of the forest tradition. It is as if you had gone back to the Buddha's time. Everything is just like the Buddha's time, as if he was personally guiding you on your practice. You can read it in the Buddhist canon, Tipitaka, of stories about monks' practices, walking and sitting meditation in the wilderness. It is unlike what you see in the cities today. It is difficult for certain people to understand practicing monks. They've been ingrained since they were young about how Buddhism should be, in terms of merit-making and rites, etc. So they don't understand why forest tradition monks live this kind of lifestyle. However, if you look into the original sources in the Tipitaka, you'll see the contrast. During the Buddha's life, he never built a single monastery. There were only lay people who offered buildings to him. Monks weren't involved in building things or collecting money and so on. It was simply not a monk's duty. If nobody built monasteries for the monks, the Buddha taught them to live under a tree and in a cave or any abandoned places. That's what shelters for monks were during the Buddha's time. They didn't live in a monastery. When the Buddha first began teaching, he also lived under a tree in a calm and private setting. There weren't any offerings of robes yet either. Monks had to collect rags that were left in cemeteries and piles of trash, lending to today's term of papa, or forest garment. The term refers to rags that were left behind in cemeteries. Monks had to collect all the rags found and sew them together to make robes, which were then washed and dyed to be worn. There was no one to offer monks robes during the Buddha's time, and so they were such rare commodities that monks had to take such a good care of them as their own bodies. The 3 pieces of robes needed to be safeguarded and with them wherever they went. Monks were to be with all of their 3 pieces of robes at all times. An alms bowl is another monk requisite, a very important one. Without the bowl, there was no way to feed oneself. It was thus very important for monks to take care of their alms bowls. They lived very simply without many possessions or materialistic things. But they had a lot of time for practice and cultivation, and so they became enlightened in large numbers. During that time, practitioners already established their concentration, samadhi. Monks of other sects had also already achieved certain levels of calm and absorption, jhana. They simply lacked wisdom, panya. They just weren't aware of the 3 marks of existence, tilakkhana. Although they could see the impermanent nature of things, anicca, and a sense of unsatisfactoriness and suffering it brings, dukkha, they just couldn't discern the lack of self, anatta. They didn't know that self, atta, is self-fashioned, a deeply rooted belief created by the mind that had long been ingrained in ordinary people's minds. It was only the Buddha who contemplated and investigated thoroughly both the body and the mind. He couldn't find self anywhere but in one's thought. His teaching to various mendicants led many to achieve enlightenment and become liberated very quickly, since they already had developed their precepts and concentration. The only thing lacking was the faculty of wisdom. When the Buddha demonstrated his teaching to monks of various sects, some 500 of them at a time, they all readily gained enlightenment and became noble disciples, arahants. Just think about it. From his first teaching on the full moon of the 8th month to that of the 3rd month, within just a few months, 7 in total, there were 1,250 noble disciples who congregated on Magha Puja without prior notice. But before the Buddha began to teach, there was literally not a single enlightened monk. Nobody was aware of what the Buddha had learned. Once there was the Buddha to spread his knowledge through teaching, those who had heard managed to penetrate it through contemplation. Once they understood, they managed to let go. Therefore, you have to penetrate the very same truth. Your body is not you and does not belong to you. With penetration comes liberation. You will no longer suffer because of your body. And scrolling to the next teaching on page 224. When it comes to meditation practice, it doesn't matter when you get there. You will get there eventually. Once you're liberated, it is all the same for everyone. It's like eating. It doesn't matter when you feel full. You will feel full eventually. So all you have to do is keep up with your practice. As to when you'll reap the result, it all depends on your merit and destiny. For those who have lots of defilements and are dim-witted, it may take a while. But for those of you who have few defilements and perceptive minds, it will be very quick. Just keep up with your practice. It doesn't matter when. It's like riding a bike, which will take you a little longer than driving a car, but both will get you there eventually. It all depends on your merit. It all depends on the good deeds you've done in the past. You may compete with others on certain things, but definitely not when it comes to past merit and destiny. And scrolling to the next section. We are beginning Chapter 3, Maranasati, Recollection of Death, on page 232. Diligence, sustained effort, and unwavering determination is what all practitioners who are determined to be liberated from all suffering should constantly have in their minds and hearts. There needs to be a willingness to cultivate various aspects of Dhamma that lead to liberation. You must be committed to and enjoy being diligent. You must be constantly focused on maintaining your effort and practice in every posture from the moment you wake up until you fall asleep. Just keep reminding yourself of the Buddha's words, quote, "You can only be liberated from suffering through your diligent effort," end quote. This very effort or diligence is what pushes practitioners to excel in various faculties. You cannot develop qualities such as mindfulness and wisdom without it. There needs to be diligence as a drive to push you to cultivate mindfulness, sati, and to control your thoughts, panya. This is so that your thoughts don't incline toward craving and desire or greed. Your various cravings should lean toward Dhamma, for example, by constantly reminding yourself of the possibility of death. The recollection of death is to cultivate mindfulness, just as the recollection of the Buddha is developed by reciting Bhutto. There are, however, 2 advantages to the recollection of death: to develop mindfulness and to cultivate wisdom simultaneously. The recollection of the Buddha only allows for the cultivation of mindfulness and not of wisdom. However, the recollection of death, being constantly aware of its possibility, allows you to develop both mindfulness and wisdom at the same time. If it suits you, Those who practice the recollection of death can make a very quick progress on Dhamma. Mindfulness will calm one's mind, allowing it to be equanimous. When there are craving and desire for one's body and life, wisdom will cure such an attachment, making death less insufferable. Wisdom will allow one to see that having been born, the body is naturally and inevitably subject to death. To effectively put an end to suffering of being attached to one's body and life, one needs to regularly make an effort to remind oneself of death. The recollection of death can be directed towards your own body as well as that of others, especially of whom you are attached to, those that you love and care about. If you keep on recollecting regularly, you will see that your concern for them is futile. It doesn't do anyone any good. In fact, it only brings you harm and suffering. Each and every one has to die. There is no exception or escape. This is the benefit of being aware of the possibility of death. The recollection of death will take away your concern and anxiety, allowing you to be carefree of your own life and those of other people's. You will discern that death is only natural and expected for having been born. It is only natural for anything that arises to eventually cease. This is what will occur in your heart when you keep recollecting death on a regular basis. To consistently be aware of death requires diligence or sustained effort. To contemplate death through meditation practice, to cultivate mindfulness, and to remind yourself of the possibility of death regularly. The Buddha taught Venerable Ananda, and here is an exchange between the Buddha and Venerable Ananda. The Buddha: how many times a day do you remind yourself of death, Ananda? Venerable Ananda: 4 to 5 times a day, Venerable Sir. Morning, midday, evening, before and after sleep, for example. The Buddha: Ananda, you are still not heedful enough. You still don't contemplate death enough in order to liberate yourself from suffering. If you want to be free from suffering and fear of death, you have to be mindful of death with every in-breath and out-breath. You will then see that death is, in fact, very quick and sudden. If you inhale but don't exhale, then you're dead. It does not drag on, nor is it frightening. With any inhalation without exhalation, you will die, and vice versa. It is something that can happen very quickly. It can be so sudden that you can hardly be surprised or even afraid. If you are constantly mindful of the possibility of death, it will then be very normal. It will be just a matter of breathing in and breathing out. End quote, end of exchange. But for those who are still sensitive and not strong-minded, their minds are not yet capable of recollecting death. They will get very fearful or depressed when they focus on the recollection of death. So they have to cultivate their mindfulness through meditation subjects, which can be time-consuming. They will have to calm their minds first before getting to the recollection of death. Death is something that all practitioners will need to contemplate at some point. It is just a matter of time. It can be done simultaneously with the cultivation of mindfulness, or it can be done separately in 2 steps. The first step is to cultivate mindfulness so that your mind is calm and focused first. Once your mind is concentrated, there is tranquility in place as a foundation. You can then practice recollecting death after having withdrawn from your concentration, samadhi. When your mind is calm, you won't get depressed or frightened while recollecting death. Craving and desire, which are the cause of depression and fear, will be under the control of samadhi. Therefore, they won't conjure up depression and fear in your mind. Your mind will then be able to recollect and contemplate death. You will see that death is something as normal and expected as the weather. It has no effect on your mind at all. The body is what is affected by death. However, the body cannot feel or acknowledge its own dying. The body is just like a tree that shows no reaction when it is being cut down. So it is only the mind that reacts to the body's dying. When there is wisdom in your heart telling you exactly who is being affected by death, then your mind won't react to it. It will accept and acknowledge the reality, the dying of your body. It is not your mind that dies, but only your body. However, it is only your mind and not your body that suffers from the death of your body. It is like a tree that isn't bothered by getting cut down, but its owner is the one who gets upset. If the owner cares about and is attached to the tree, not wanting it to die, then he'll be very upset and angry when somebody cuts it down. It is the same with your body and mind. Your mind is the owner of your body. Your mind is only a temporary owner of your body. It is not a permanent owner, because your body doesn't belong permanently to your mind. Your body is bound to grow old, get ill, and die eventually. If your mind is aware of this truth and able to distinguish itself from your body through contemplation, it will remain equanimous and be able to let go when something happens to your body. Your mind won't be bothered by your body's death. Your suffering is due to your craving for the body not to die. However, with wisdom comes equanimity and the ability to let go. Consistent contemplation and recollection of the inevitability of aging, illness, and death will allow you to keep calm and let things be when something happens. This is because there is wisdom in place to keep reminding you so that you don't forget. But suffering will arise if there's craving for not dying, aging, and getting ill. Your wisdom and mindfulness come from your sustained effort in recollecting death. If you don't make the effort, then these Dhamma qualities will not take hold and resonate within you. You'll only be aware of them temporarily, for instance, while listening to the Dhamma, just as you are at the moment. When you go home, back to where you live, or to all the things you do, you'll forget about what you've heard if you don't keep reminding yourself of death. It will just turn into perception, sanya. It will become a memory. When you encounter your own death or that of others, you'll suddenly panic and get frightened. This is because you don't have wisdom firmly rooted in your mind to prevent such fear from arising. The fear arises out of your own negligence that your body is subject to aging, illness, and death. When there are delusion and heedlessness, craving will arise, craving for the body to last. So when you're facing death, fearfulness will arise along with suffering. This is because you don't have the wisdom to keep you constantly grounded. But if you keep in mind what you've just heard about death, even after leaving here, and recollect it frequently, your mind will have the wisdom to protect you from being bothered and troubled by death. It all comes down to your determination and diligence. You must keep developing mindfulness and cultivating wisdom as much as possible. Keep doing sitting meditation to calm your mind. Once your mind is calm, you will be able to let go of your body. Your wisdom will make you aware that your body is not you, nor does it belong to you. Your body is composed of 4 elements: earth, water, air, and fire. It will eventually revert to its original elements. The composition of the 4 elements in your body, earth, water, air, and fire, will eventually dissolve and disband. The air element will no longer go in and out of your body, and so the fire element will disappear. The water element will leave your body to the point where your body is all dried up and turns into earth. This is how it is with everyone's body. Having been born, each and every one of us is subject to aging, illness, and death. No one can prevent their body from aging, getting ill, and dying. Your wisdom, however, will allow you to accept such reality, to accept the natural course of your body. Aging, illness, and death are inevitable. That's it for today. And we're going to finish the book in the 12th recording, the next recording, beginning on page 240. And it will be longer because I'm going to go ahead and finish the book. So it'll probably be about a 30-minute recording instead of around a 20-minute recording. So I'll see you next time with metta. Bye-bye.